This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this video will provide an overview for ag extension districts in the state of Iowa to better understand or familiarize themselves with the budget process for fiscal year 25. Again, this is for the fiscal year 25 budget for the county ag extension districts. And one thing I will point out is if you have completed the budget in recent years, you'll find it to be very similar. There are a few items that I would highlight to keep in mind as you work in your budget, but for the most part, fiscal year 25 will seem very familiar to you. The place to go to start off with your budget is the Department of Management's website, and you'll go to dom.iowa.gov/other-authorities. A couple things to look at on that page if you're interested in the tax rates of other extension districts or in looking at historical information. On the left-hand side, you'll see tax rates listed under other authority resources. When you pull that up, you'll see several files going back several years of spreadsheets with tax rate information. It'll list each and every ag extension district in the state, the different components of their total tax rate, as well as their value and a property tax dollar request. So that's, just a good place to go if you're curious what other folks are levying for taxes, or if you're asked for historical information for yourself, or perhaps other counties in the state or your region. I'll go over a couple of different roles and folks that have different parts to play in the process. The Department of Management's role is that we provide the online budget forms. We provide instructions to assist in the completion of those forms, as well as technical assistance. And we do that for the Ag Extension as well as for all other local government budgets. And we do that on an annual basis. So, just to kind of jump into the property tax itself, the main levy that ag extension districts use is the Extension Education Fund levy. And the levy limits and taxation limits for this fund depend on the population of your district and whether or not there's been a successful referendum authorizing the regular limits to be exceeded. This is all described in section 176A10 of the code, and to my knowledge, everyone is still operating under a successful referendum for those levy limits. Keep in mind, the maximum tax includes both property tax and utility replacement excise tax. If the referendum itself specified a lower limit than what is shown on the next page, then of course that lower limit would apply, but I'm not aware of any cases of that in the state. So each and every year, your maximum tax dollars increase by a set amount based on which population category you fall into. And so this is your levy rate, which stays the same each year, but as far as how many dollars you can generate, that does increase by an incremental value each year. And what we have in the far right-hand side is the levy dollar limits that you will fall under for the fiscal 25 budget. Unemployment compensation, Section 9631 of the Code of Iowa does provide that political subdivisions can levy a tax to pay for the cost of unemployment benefits, either to pay for the cost of the claim itself or to be part of the state system. Another levy available to ag extension districts is the tort liability. It's authorized under Chapter 670 of the code, and it does authorize the purchase of a liability insurance policy. And it does allow for, of course, that insurance to be paid from the Extension Education Fund or a separate levy if that fund, that Extension Education Fund, does not provide enough resources. If you have a package insurance policy, only the tort liability premium may be paid from the tort liability levy. And this includes just a listing of examples of types of coverage that may be included. It also may, this levy can also pay for the payment of a judgment or settlement. under the scope of Chapter 670. So you could keep that in mind as well. A change, or not necessarily a change, but more of a consideration as you budget for fiscal year 25. The state used to have a credit that was referred to as a business property tax credit. That program transitioned away from a credit, instead to a reduction of taxable value and then a replacement of that loss of revenue from the state. And it's actually known typically by a uh, two-tier program is what it's typically called by Department of Revenue. So, because this is replacement, these are replacement dollars that you're receiving from the state, it's similar to the commercial and industrial replacement program, and it's considered an other non-tax revenue. Fiscal year 24 was the first year. So this current year is the first year that you're receiving this replacement revenue instead of receiving the credit against levied taxes revenue from the state. So it's really a different type of revenue for a similar-ish program. So, as you budget for the receipt of those replacements for fiscal year 25, what you could do is take a look at what you received this fall in the first half of fiscal 24 for that payment, and that might help you estimate your fiscal year 25 replacement revenue. Again, just referring back to the commercial and industrial replacement, that is a program that is phasing out over a period of years, and the actual payments for that program are listed on our website here if you're interested in taking a look at what fiscal 25 will provide. Couple other changes that we see with the fiscal 25 budget, and these are really both impacts on your taxable valuation. So again, something just to be aware of, but not impacting directly the forms or process itself. There was a large property tax bill that made numerous changes, but one of the things it did, it's House File 718. One of the things it did is it retains the existing homestead credit program that homeowners have available to them, but then also adds an additional program for individuals 65 and over. And for those folks, this is a homestead exemption. So, what this is, beginning with fiscal 25, is those individuals will receive a property valuation exemption of 3250. So they will receive a reduction in their taxable value of $3,250. In fiscal 26, this would increase to $6,500. So this is simply meaning that you're going to see a reduction in your taxable value. Now, there is no state replacement revenue for this exemption. So you're not budgeting any new revenue coming from the state to replace this. It's just simply a reduction in the value that you can tax against. Military exemption is an existing program, but the House File 718 did increase the exemption from 1852 to 4,000 beginning with fiscal year 25. The military exemption used to be funded by the state, and it is not funded beginning with fiscal year 25. So again, two things to keep in mind as having impacts on your taxable value. And the other major change to note is your budget deadline has been pushed back to April 30th. The reason for this change is simply because there were additional changes and processes added to the city, county, and school budgets that necessitated a later budget deadline for those levy authorities. So to keep things in line, we moved everyone's budget deadline to April 30. Budget protests, protesting a local government budget is covered under Code of Iowa 2427. Persons affected by a budget may appeal that budget, and they do so by filing a petition with the county auditor of the county in which the local government is located. They have until May 10th to file such a protest. So if you hear discussion about, a potential protest in your county and you're curious what all that entails, you can certainly follow up with me and I will give you an overview of that process. So, if individuals file a petition, they would do so with the county auditor. Again, have to do that by May 10th. And then the county auditor would forward protest documents to the state appeal board. The state appeal board is a three-member body consisting of the director of Department of Management, the state treasurer, and the state auditor. And that three-member body will send staff to conduct a local hearing on the budget protest and to gather information for the protest decision. And ultimately, the state appeal board will render a decision on that protest and that budget. Budget amendments are required for any increase in the totals for funds. The amendment must be effective before any of the expenditure amounts are exceeded. So essentially, you must amend before you spend. Budget amendments do require the same notice and hearing procedures as required for the adoption of the original budget. So again, publish notice, not less than 10, no more than 20 days prior to the date of the hearing. Budget amendments are also subject to protest, and an amendment of a budget after May 31st, which is protested, but there's just simply not enough time for the state appeal board to conduct a hearing and render a decision before the end of the fiscal year. That budget amendment would then be void. I always do tell folks, though, if you're thinking you need to amend in June, go ahead and do it. It's better to go ahead and have that amendment out there and completed. The chances of protesting an amendment are lower than a regular budget because they're simply protesting an expenditure for which you already have the funds to cover. It's not an opportunity to discuss taxes again at that point. The amendment form is found by logging into the same online system you use to adopt your budget. Essentially, you go to that current year budget and you select an amend button that you'll see on the left-hand side of that budget. And we do post a webinar on the amendment process on your page so you can review it. And there's also instructions within the online amendment form itself. So we'll take a few minutes here just to go over the screens for the online budget system. Your login access should transfer from last year. If you were an authorized user last year, let me know. If you have someone that needs access that does not have it, they will need to get an Enterprise A&A account ID, and they will need to email me that ID so I can provide it with access. When you're operating in the forms, if you use a tab key, it will move between the cells that you can enter data. You can also use the arrow keys. Ending fund balances are produced by subtracting the sum of all expenditures from the sum of the beginning balance plus any other revenue. And as you move within a page, the cell that you're in will be highlighted, and the row and column show a green highlight. So just to sort of help you keep track of where you are. To go to the system, again, you're going to go to dom.iowa.gov and you're going to select Other Authority Resources from the local government drop-down menu. There is a variety of information on this page. As I mentioned, this is where you can see your tax rate documents. Um, Also, you will find the login to the system. You'll see it right here. And to get in to the system, you will want to select Access System. When you select Access System, you will go to the home page, and what it will tell you in two columns is whether or not your particular county has filed their valuations. You do need valuations to be filed, that taxable amount to be in there for you to be able to operate your budget and determine your tax rate. To begin your budget, you will log in using your Enterprise A&A account ID and password with the blue screen. And again, as I mentioned before, the new fiscal year 25 budget is displayed as well as the current year budget and past budgets. To get into that 25 budget, you will click the edit button. Once inside the budget, you see tabs across the top that represent your different funds and pages that need to be completed. Data entered on the fund tabs are going to be summed and pulled over to that adopted budget summary tab and the public hearing tab. For each and every fund, you'll have 2 tabs within the fund that will provide the revenue and expenditure pages for you to complete. And again, when you do your budget, you do have to complete 3 years of data, the actual year information, the current year re-estimated if appropriate, and then your budget year proposed. And again, this is just sort of a look of what those pages look like. The adopted budget summary page, this page again provides a summary of the information that you entered in the supplemental pages. And also here down below, this is where you enter your tax asking for the different funds within which you can levy. So blue boxes you can enter into, white boxes, those are either pulling from other pages or they represent a calculation. When you're in the budget, at any time, you can check errors, save often, and you can also print. Again, I talked a little bit about valuations being necessary, obviously, to complete your budget. Once those 2023 valuations are filed, those will be populated in that budget summary to help calculate your property tax rate. Until valuations are filed, or if your county auditor unfiles valuations to make a correction, for instance, you'll see this notice on top just to make you know that, yes, there could be a change possibly to your valuations. You can print the full budget at any time, and now you could also print only the current tab if you're wanting to, just take a look in hard copy form of the page you're working on. Upon proposing your budget for publication, you can also print only the publication notice. In Google Chrome, which is what we recommend, and certainly use the latest version, you can select your local printer or you can save to PDF as your destination. In that way, you have a hard copy, but you could also forward a PDF to your local newspaper for publication. Again, supplementary details is where you enter all your revenue expense data for the 3 years as required, and that information is totaled and brought forward to your adopted summary page and hearing tab. If you want to include electronic or virtual meeting information on your notice, there is a text box on the bottom of that public hearing tab to add this information. Again, you must check errors before you exit your budget and move forward to the next step. And it will let you know if an error is found and it will prevent you from moving forward. So you'd want to make sure to check for that. And once you're error free, you'll see an option in green like this. You can then propose or publish your budget and obtain your budget hearing notice. When you propose publish, this is where you get the screen to enter the time, date, and place for the hearing notice. The system generates a notice. Again, you could print it, save it to your system, and print it at a later time. Following the public hearing, the council may make any allowable revisions. They can decrease tax asking or expenditures to the budget by returning it to draft. Returning to draft just simply opens the budget for edits. At that point, you can make changes and save, and then again, propose publish the budget. It would not be published in the newspaper again unless you're republishing for a certain reason, and so you would use your original publication date. And if no revisions are needed at that point, you just click adopt and proceed with your budget as currently presented. You enter your adoption date and click the adopt button. With the county auditor, you must file your proof of publication from your newspaper for that budget notice, as well as the signed adopted budget and supplementary pages. And again, that deadline is now April 30th. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call at the number listed here. Thank you.